steel beams, turbine motors, copper wiring, and scrap metal. The Lenox Metals Recycling Show is for the serious big players. If you're working in a demolition, renovation, construction, in the hotel industry, government agency, or a utilities company, or just need to know what to do with your scrap and junk, then tune in. Al Hornstein, CEO of Lenox Metals, has over 25 years of experience as a commercial and industrial scrap metals dealer. He will bring you valuable information on how to save time, money, and your company's reputation when it comes to processing your recyclable scrap materials. Now, here's your host, Alan Hornstein, and his co-host, Justine Gronwald.
Welcome back to another episode of Lenox Metals Recycling. I am your co-host, Justine Gronwald, with your host, Alan Hornstein of Lenox Metals.
Hi, Justine.
The CEO of Lenox Metals.
So I'm told. Good to be back.
Yeah. This episode, I really wanted to cover, we talked about how you divert 25 million pounds of scrap metal, and you're looking to double that in the next 5 years, but where exactly does this stuff go? I mean, what do you do with it, and where does it go, and what happens to it?
Sure. That's a great question.
Yeah, I want to know.
Often asked by people who are curious about it. First of all, we have contracts and relationships that are set up worldwide to sell packaged scrap material in different forms and in different alloys to various countries. Scrap metal is in all shapes and forms, whether it's steel or non-steel products like copper, brass, or aluminum, are essentially commodities. So I am in the business of looking at commodity, in my case, commodity exchange prices, which is called COMAX. As an acronym. And I begin to look at the market during the week, which actually starts at 11 p.m. in the evening, my time.
For Hawaii?
For Hawaii.
Now, is this the same as the New York Stock Exchange, or this is a different...
It's stock exchange related in that
commodities, though.
Our metals business starts its morning off with price settings in London.
Interesting.
In London, England. So the London Metal Exchange is where it all starts for the worldwide metal reclamation and recycling world that's out there. It's where commodity exchange pricing begins the day. It actually would begin, if it were Sunday, it would be 11 p.m. On a Sunday, which is already the start of the marketplace, the opening of the marketplace over in Europe. And then there are two other times during Hawaii time that I look at it, which is about 11 a.m. Now I've woken up and I'm looking at the price, the next opening, which is sort of about a lunchtime price setting. Which is the second set of prices that come out on the exchange. And then the close, which is about 1:30 in the afternoon.
Well, that's pretty good, because I know, my dad being a stockbroker in his career, it would start super early in the morning because it was New York time.
Right.
But you are going by London time.
Yeah, there's a couple of time zones actually relating. It is true of the stock exchange world that when stocks are bought and sold, that the New York Stock Exchange time element really comes into place. In our case, it's a couple of time zones ahead for the setting of metal commodity exchange pricing, which is set in London. So we look at the opening of that market, and then it's up to me to look at our warehouse of metal to see what will be sold that day.
Wow.
Otherwise, we will hold and warehouse the material for possible sale during the week. So I'm looking at trends that open up actually Sunday evening, and that will progress into the market all the way till Friday afternoon
Wow.
of the week. And that is essentially my work week, but it ends at about 1 p.m. on a Friday. So my Pauhana starts earlier than most. But it's a gauging of the marketplace day to day. It tells me whether to sell or to hold. So in effect, when you're buying and selling commodities on a day-to-day basis, in a contractual form, you have to be aware of the pricing that's being set each day.
So what comes to mind is that you don't only haul all this enormous amounts of scrap metal, 25 million pounds, but when somebody deals with you or contracts with you, they're also getting a broker, a seasoned, experienced broker who knows what to look for.
It is true, and when we go into our projects, we use that element of marketing to lead, a seller into a potential project, so that he or she understands the magnitude of the marketplace they're dealing in.
Yeah.
Yes. So pricing or price structures are set out. There's also the timing issue. Is a seller ready to sell?
Right.
Because if they're not ready to sell until 6 months down the line, then they're simply going to get a speculative price of the market priced that day.
Just the landscape as it is now, but you don't have a crystal ball 6 months down the line.
No, and certainly one we're not in control of.
Exactly.
What drives, as you may know, having your dad in the business, you have world events happening. You have speculative buy-offs and trades.
People are emotional.
Yeah, very emotional in the marketplace. It's emotionally driven by investors day to day. Institutional investing has become sort of the call of the day in the copper industry, which was originally prior to the crash in 2008 of the banking industry and the investment making industry was really driven by the laws of supply and demand. That's no longer the case. The rules have changed, and they changed dramatically in 2008. So it became one of an institutional investor coming into the marketplace and taking advantage of a marketplace that was gone. So they're out there buying and selling up cheap inventories. Such happened in the world of Chinese investments. When the crash occurred, China came back and started buying up cheap inventories of metal throughout the world.
I see.
Gold, silver, precious metals, things of that nature.
And speaking of China, you do sell 90% of your metal to places like China, Korea, Malaysia, India, and Japan. And a lot of this involves copper, brass, mixed metals, motors, transformers, just about everything.
Yes.
And you make a determination, or with that markets, you have contracts with them, what exactly they need, or what is it they're looking for? Is that what your relationships with them are?
Yeah, just to go back to China, and I think of China and the rest of the world. Okay, China is the biggest consumer of metal, scrap metal in the world. Their consumption outweighs all the other countries combined together.
Wow. Yeah.
So as a consumer, they are the biggest consumer in the world. And we look at them that way. So when we're attempting to let a contract out or buy into a contract, we want to set it out for as many months as possible so that our pricing is set. Whether the market goes up or down, we're not subject to those changes.
I see.
Not an easy way to market, but yet
Right.
it's available to us.
So you want to lock it?
Yeah, we will in some cases lock prices in for 4 to 6 months at a time, so
Wow.
we're not exposed to the rise and fall of the marketplace daily.
Okay.
In some cases, we can go out sometimes 60 days on copper contracts. So if I'm collecting copper from a series of project sites, I can determine through estimating certain types of projects how much copper we'll get, how many units of copper will be available for me to trade into a contract, And then I go out to the buyers of the world who are buying copper contracts to acquire the best price. Otherwise, we're selling it to a consuming company much bigger than us that has the leverage of the marketplace to give us the most competitive price back in our sale.
And that benefits the generator.
It does, because the benefit of pricing is passed down to the generator, usually positively.
It's a win-win-win situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it even more. The way I see it, the generator wins in both ways. They get all their stuff taken away without any headaches. They get paid for it. The Aina, the land, wins because now it doesn't end up in the landfill. You know, the people of the island win. You win because it grows your business.
Right.
And the people who are employed by you win because it keeps them with a job. You know,
Yeah.
there's so many winning factors in this.
Absolutely. Yeah, all affecting from the beginning of the transaction to the end of it. There are many, many people involved in it, instrumental in getting the people or getting material into the marketplace so that it can be traded expeditiously. We don't necessarily believe in the model of warehousing and containment of hundreds of thousands of pounds of material. We believe in remarketing and selling into the marketplace on a daily or weekly basis.
And that metal really has a life cycle, and it's being used to its utmost use.
Yes, no, it is. Based on the demand of certain types of commodities, we find, wherever you look, you have consumption. It can be in the corresponding European countries, but typically the Asian countries consuming on an ongoing basis. They themselves generators of scrap material too. In the case of China, which generates incredible amounts of scrap material.
I imagine. They got the biggest population.
Well, not only the biggest population, but as a consumer, they're typically maximizing their effort in regenerating the material back into consumptions in their own country. So they're not necessarily exporting as much as you would think of scrap metal. They're keeping it, so to speak, in the country.
That's good. Well, for them. And let me ask you this. Have you visited China?
I have not. I've had numerous invitations,
That'd be
stand-up
interesting.
invitations. We're planning on taking a couple business trips this coming year, and actually going to the consuming factories that will take the scrap metal and regenerate something suitable to make into a reformed metal, what's called a cathode. A cathode is something that may be a foot long and maybe 6 inches thick that will be resmelted into a form to generate into a manufactured product or metal for redistribution into a manufacturing process. So we'd like to see some of that life cycle going on in the countries that are consuming our scrap metal as well.
Right. That's interesting. And how I see it is that now that you're finally going to go down there, I think that starts the new evolution of your company for its growth, because relationships, and you get to meet them eyeball to eyeball.
Sure.
Just generates even more of a tighter relationship. And one of the guests of my podcast show, Peter Carlisle, he does these relationships with Asia.
Right.
So it's really important that you keep those relationships alive. So I think that's a good idea that you're finally going to go meet them. That would be really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we've had our relationships have been in place for some 20 odd years,
Yeah.
and our contracts and relationships that are and have been around for some time are very, very solid and in place, and so we want to take advantage of their intelligence over there and their marketing capacity, also as a consumer. So that there is some, symmetry, if you will,
Exactly.
of both relationships that make more sense, on a contractual, going forward contracting basis. And we intend on keeping those relationships intact.
Oh yes, very important.
So that becomes a little bit more hands-on and personal.
Let me ask you about these other countries, though. Where do you see Korea or Malaysia or India, Japan heading? I mean, do you see them as growth, or they're just, side countries that need it so that you sell it to them?
Yeah, well, countries like India, which are still considered third world, they're like the position China was in years ago, because their populations are magnificent over in India. So they're buying a lot of, shall we say, lower valued scrap metal on a contractual basis to either reuse or resmelt with labor, very, very inexpensive labor rates as well, as China had. So they're a big consumer in our future.
Okay.
As well as ongoing with China. More in Malaysia, Indonesia, they're more specialized alloy purchasers of different types of alloys that they're looking for. So we continue to have those relationships, filling out contracts as much as we can as well. So that consumption or that world of consumption continues to be and get stronger as our populations grow, and as China becomes the power which it professes to be, this will continue into the next decade.
And a lot of countries are seemingly, I'm not really sure how true it is, but they are developing a more middle class type of economy, and with that there's more growth, so they're going to need more of this metal or materials to build that up and support it.
Of course. I mean, we even see a country that's emerged over the last 10 to 20 years has been Japan. We sell a lot of primary and secondary copper products to Japan as well. They're more interested in getting most of the quality type commodities that we buy and sell. So our relationships go to consumers in that part of the world as well. Japan being, they're completely intellectual about the world that's around them. They're about giving back to the consumer, in the way of a product, a device.
Right, they're good at that.
They're excellent at that. And so they're more geared toward, the future and the vision of where the world is going.
Yeah.
So, and we're planning on visiting Japan as well.
Fantastic. I think this is a really fascinating episode, because you don't really think about where all this stuff goes. And so think about it, that it goes from Hawaii, and it's bailed out, going to these countries to benefit them, and they're actually paying us to take our metals. That's interesting. That's fascinating.
Correct. Yeah, that's part of the transaction, as we say.
That's cool.
The ability to go in and contract with consumers.
Well, this is the end of this episode. And if any of you want to get a special report from Alan, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the number 808-518-3997. Just call or text that number and you'll be emailed this special report covering a lot of the things that we're discussing in our episodes here in this podcast show. Until next time, I'm the co-host, Justine Gronwald, with the CEO of Lenox Metals, Alan Hornstein.
Thank you, Justine.
All right. Until next time.